21. That's per day. 5 once before breakfast with a glass of water. 5 more once after breakfast on a full stomach. 6 he has to take 4 times a day before meals. 6 more they call pain management. He gets to choose when he has those. Some of them have names like vincristine, mercaptopurine and thalamid. He pronounces them mentally as he takes them, tries to keep vowel sounds going as the tablets collapse down his throat. He is not himself. That's what they all say. Not that they knew him before. His body is a web of capillaries, vessels and arteries pulsing. They flood poisoned blood throughout his body. He can feel it corroding organs and breaking him down piece by piece. He has a sense that when he walks, each step edges him closer towards something. They call it a steady decline, inevitable. They refer to him in historical terms. He is not himself. He swallows a glass of water, feels the liquid fill the chasms of dryness in his throat, pops another pill in, swallows. This is number 100,517 for Renastat. He's been alive for so long. When he helped break down the Berlin Wall, he took a breather, sat watching the celebrations and felt his body convulse, his heart tightening. The night she left him. He'd seen fireworks before and since, but those would always stay in his mind, even more than the ones he'd witnessed in 15th century China. He is not himself. He remembers Ripperland, stalking the cobbles in dank sunsets, drunk on smog. He had felt differently back then, quick and young, able to last 10 rounds in the ring, gorge and drink beer like swill. He used to breeze through pain, ride it out, let it reside and learn. Now he has to manage it, organise and regiment it. As he heaves himself out of his house, he pauses for a moment to take a shot from his inhaler. His breath rushes back to him. The sun bears down, blinding but not warming him. He used to worship it, bowed before altars and laid sacrificial lambs before it, built stone temples miles in height in the space of a day, and in the morning climbed to the top of them and watched as his god rose from the underworld. He knows better now. The bus stinks of piss and beer, stagnant air. He can feel the build-up already, that dull marching thud of pain approaching. He knocks back more water, places an opioid under his tongue. The meandering throb retreats. 100,518. There are kids on the bus, high-pitched chatter, music pouring from an unknown source, polluting the atmosphere. He curses speakers, remembers the sound of horseshoe on cobblestone, the metronomic rise and fall of a rider, the ominous heartbeat of an approach. He doesn't understand modern music, electronic synthesized sounds. They remind him of hospital waiting rooms. He taught Hendrix the guitar, bought a soul from Robert Johnson and sold it to Buckley 60 years later. He doesn't have time for kids anymore. When the wall came down, years ago, he was with her. They had sat and watched the fireworks and bands. He'd introduced himself as a drifter a decade earlier in Munich. She whispered words like revolution and anarchy in his ear in a soft German accent. There was energy in the air. He hadn't felt it in years. Together they ran down the spree and jumped in. He wouldn't be able to do that anymore. He pops a methotrexate and knocks it back with some plastic tasting water. 100,519. There is a moment when he imagines the battle being raged within. Cancerous cells bombarded by a constant stream of drugs. He'd fought in a war once. No, twice. Killed men, invented bombs, terrorised worlds. The rain and mud and smell stick with him, even now. That sickening feeling of not knowing the difference between the feel of water and blood, not caring either. Adrenaline coursing through him, his blood infectious in such a different way. As he gets off the bus, a young girl brushes past him and catches the corner of his jacket. He grabs the lapels and throws them across his chest, storming away. Women these days, he thinks, are not like the ones he knew, the talcum-powdered faces of Edwardian courtesans, French resistance members, or European determination and grit, and finally her. She'd left that night, after Hasselhoff and U2 finished ruining freedom for everyone. Maybe she'd realised she was getting older. Maybe she looked at him one day and counted the wrinkles across his face and found they were the same number as they were a decade ago. That he still had the same grey hairs in the same places. That despite how ill he was, despite the fact that he was dying, he had been dying for a very long time. Sometimes he tells the nurses about her. Maybe he'll do it today. His fleeting romance under the stars that lasted just a fraction of time, a blip in reality. He'll tell them how they kissed under every star and danced to every song, and how she vanished. They never listen though. They will nod and smile like always. He pops number 100,520. He is not himself.